Mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check one, mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. Going live in 3. Mic check, mic check. Going live in 3. Stay tuned. Mic check. Checking my levels. All right, all right, all right. We're rolling up on our last final minute. Gonna let everybody start coming in. So give y'all a brief little description of what today is going to bring. We're going to be talking about the monetary system, history of the dollar, how we got into this mess, and the coming collapse of the dollar, and what you can do to kind of ride yourself out for the storm, because the storm is coming. And once this dollar collapses, it's up to you to survive it. So we're just gonna wait a couple more seconds, start getting everybody in, and we're just gonna dive right into it. I'm gonna touch briefly on the monetary system in our country. I might have to do a separate video for that, just because that's a whole nother topic in itself. All right, so let's go ahead and get this out the way. We got that. All right. So let's go ahead and get this shit started. Let's see, where is my... All right, start about right here. All right. Hope everybody's doing all right. If you got any questions, hit me up on the Facebook, or you can drop some comments on the YouTube link. I check it every now and then while I'm doing this, and we can kind of go from there. This thing then skipped. Okay. All right. So, when did all this... Really? It's going to keep skipping. Where's my keyboard? Okay, I'm just going to have to do it this way. Whatever. Okay. So, when did all of this start? Well, to take this all, to understand the money situation and how we got to where we are, we're going to have to go back a few thousand years to kind of understand where it started, how it started, who started it, and how it evolved into what it is today. So let's take a trip back down memory lane. We're going to go back to Egypt. Egypt 5,000 years ago. That's it's basically when gold and silver was first used as value, so to speak. It was still had problems back in Egypt because there was all different sizes of gold. You had some that weighed an ounce, some that weighed, a quarter of an ounce, more than an ounce. It was different sizes. So it wasn't quite perfect yet. People knew that gold was valuable, but there wasn't necessarily a fair exchange rate. And the picture that you see on the screen is the barter system, where if I had some apples, like the picture, if I had some apples, and he wanted to get some apples, I would offer some apples for his chicken, and he would offer me his chicken for some apples. The problem with that was some people didn't want that damn chicken, or some people didn't want apples. So thus the conflict started. But I need that chicken, so you're gonna take these apples. But I don't want those apples, so I'm gonna keep my chicken. So you see where the problem started to kind of lie in with that. So first, let's see how I want to take this. First, let's go by this. You have two types. I'm gonna kind of be jumping ahead. You got two types of money. You got currency, and then you have money. Currency is dollar bills, $5 bills, $20 bills. Is interchangeable, but it's not a set stored value. Money is gold and silver. 1 ounce of gold, 1 ounce of silver, whatever. Then you have what's called fiat money. And what fiat money is, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but just roll with it. So fiat money is basically currency that's not backed by gold. Meaning, okay, so say we'll get into that. I don't want to confuse you. Okay, so let's see. You got the Egypt 5,000 years ago. That's when they kind of brought into the whole gold and all that. But it really didn't start until around 680, 630 BC in a little country called Lydia. And Lydia, what they was doing was they was melting the gold into equal pieces, equal sizes, and equal weight. So that's when basically a measurable unit was created. So you had a gold coin basically, and they're all the same. They weigh the same amount. They're the same size. So you got gold coins. So that was in Lydia, and the purpose for the creating that was they wanted to make it, something portable, durable, and you can, divide it up, and its storage value, which you can't really do with like oil or stuff like that, because especially with oil, is yes, it's valuable, but it's not portable. So Lydia started that, creating the equal sizes of gold, and then they brought that over to Athens. And once it got into Athens, that's when you could say the party kind of started. Because back in the day, Athens was a free market country. meaning there's no laws or restrictions or anything on like that on how to sell a product. There's no like health codes or you have to make it this way or you have to be a certain age. It doesn't have none of that. You just whatever I want to sell it for and however I want to make it, that's how it was. So Athens, once they were introduced to gold, they also was one of the first countries to start the taxation system with a free market. So they was the first ones to tax their uh their people to help fund the things that they was doing, which was war and they call it public works spending, which is basically like building schools, buildings, whatever, roads, stuff for the community, public works. So everything was good until which was it? The war with Sparta. They got into that war with Sparta. I think it's called the Peloponnesian War. I can't. Peloponnesian War. I think that's what it was called. The Peloponnesian War. I believe that's what it was with Sparta. And with that war, first the main problem was Sparta had control of um Athens gold mines. So they lost control of that. Sparta basically took that over. So all the gold that they had was the gold that was in their country in Athens. So what they had to do was while they're sending their troops, out to do war and all that good stuff, the troops still needed to eat and buy supplies. So they had to give them the gold that they had already in their country with soldiers as they're, deploying out. Now Sparta wasn't like right around the corner. That was a good little distance. And now that they don't have control of their gold mines, they had to they had to keep giving their warriors gold coins as they're going out to fight this war. So the gold supply is going low because they lost access to their mine in Sparta, so they're not bringing in any more gold. They just all their gold is going out with the soldiers to pay for food and all that good stuff. So let's see. Um, so once all that, I'm trying to think how did I don't want to confuse you. I'm trying to follow timeline here. So okay, so they lost. So after they sent their warriors out, their gold supplies started getting low. So they had to come up. That's when the taxation really started. So they started taxing their citizens. Just for our whole numbers, we'll say 1,000 coins, 1,000 gold coins a year or whatever. So they needed 1,000 gold coins from their citizens to help give to these soldiers so they can go pay for the food to fight Sparta. So the problem was, like I said, they didn't have any more coming in. So what they did was Athens, they took copper and blended it with the gold. So now you have what's called debased coin, which would take 1,000 gold coins and mix it with copper, and it turns it into 2,000 coins, copper based coins, I guess you could say. So then people was like, oh, okay, that'll work, that'll work. So slowly, as those copper coins started to fill, people started to realize that gold was still more valuable than the copper coins. So what would do is they would just give you more copper coins and keep the gold for themselves because it was more rare. I think they call it the Gretchen. I think it's called the Gretchen effect. I believe that's what it's called. I might be wrong on the word. I think it's like Gretchen effect, something like that. But basically, meaning that you'll hold on to you hold on to what's more valuable and you let go of the least valuable. So that's what they was doing. They was mixing up the copper coins. They was mixing up the gold with the copper to make new coins. And then it got to a point where it took, just to use a whole number, it took about 20 copper coins just to get one full gold coin. And from that moment, that's when gold and silver had got an actual price to it, like an actual like it took 20 copper coins to get one gold coin. So after that, let's see, they took the gold. Yeah, yeah, they started keeping the gold, and they was mixing it with the copper. But this was the problem. Like I said, they still had their problem where gold wasn't coming in. So they're mixing the gold that they had with copper to make more coins, but their gold supply is still running low. And while they're fighting this war, they still have spending, money for the soldiers and money for the public works. That's where they messed up at. With when when they was doing the war, it was I want to say it was like 20 year. I think it was like a 20-year. It was like a little ceasefire for a little minute, but they didn't save the gold or the money. They was just still, spending it, spending it, spending it, spending it, and not really having nothing come in. So that created. Hold on, someone is calling me. Okay. But yeah. So yeah, they kept spending it on war and public works, and that basically brought them bankrupt because they didn't have any coming in. They're spending more than they had coming in. They had the taxes coming in, but they's 1,000 in coins, but they're spending 2,000 in coins, and plus mixing it with their with the copper. So that just wasn't going right. That wasn't going right. Hold on, someone is texting me. Someone is texting. Okay, sorry about that. People texting me. All right, so where was we at? Oh yeah, back in. So basically, Athens brought their own self down just because they spent too much money than what was going in. So now let's kind of so that's basically what started the whole price for gold, if you would say. So now let's jump back into modern day, today's. Well, not really today's, because It still started around the mess that we are in right now. Today's mess started around the 1880, 1920s ish. That, yeah, started around that era when we had the that's when we created the what was it called, the classical, that was the classical gold standard. Let's see. And that was this right here, basically meaning if you give me $20, that equals $20 in gold. That was the classical gold standard. That's what started back in the 1880s and all that. Now, let's see. World War II came around, and we didn't really get involved in that at first. And we was making our money from Europe between World War One and World War II. Europe was giving us gold to buy, and they was buying tanks and food and guns from us to help fight all that. We didn't get involved in the war till like late towards the end of World War One. That's when we kind of got involved with that. But basically, the classic gold standard, meaning we give you gold. The money was receipts for gold. Yeah, it had 100% reserve rate, meaning if you got if there's, let's say, we'll just use short numbers. If there's 100 pieces, $100 worth of gold in the vault, then there's only $100 worth of receipts floating around in public, if that makes sense. That's how it first started. It was you had to have the same amount of receipts going for the gold that you had in the bank. So after World War One came about, they kind of did some findangling and suspended the whole cashing in for your gold. They didn't really, they frowned upon cashing in your gold. You can do it, but it had to be like some extreme scenario, and that's what brought us into the global exchange standard, or the Federal Reserve Act. And that just says we're going to give you uh you're not going to get all your gold, basically. If you got, let's see, do I got one of those on here? You got let's say you got $100. You got $100 receipt for $100 worth of gold. But once the gold exchange standards happen, that $100 will only equal to 40% of gold. So you got $100, but you're only getting like $40 worth of gold. And that was the gold exchange standard. So that's already, so now we're starting to get into the findangling. You got $100 receipt for gold, but you're only getting $40 worth of gold because they only had to keep 40%. They was only required to keep 40% of the reserve rate of the gold that's equal to the receipts. So, like I said, Europe was paying us gold during World War One and World War Two. Like, it got to a point towards the end of World War One, World War Two, the United States has 2/3 of the entire world's gold supply. Like, we pretty much had all the gold. We had all that shit because we was supplying tanks. We were supplying tanks and goods and guns for about 6 years to Europe, and we was just stacking up that gold. And then we're also was giving them dollars, or AKA receipts, for gold. So we was raking it in. We was raking it in. Oh, so let's see. And yeah. That's when the whole conspiracy about we make money off of war started. And the thing with that is you only make money off of war if you wasn't what we was doing if you wasn't involved in the war, which we wasn't really involved like that. We was in it, but not really. We was just selling. We was selling tanks, guns, and food, and we was getting gold in return from the Europeans. So all that went down. But the problem, what happened was Europe shot themselves in the foot. Cause like I said, they was doing that for 6 years, and we ended up with over 2/3 of the entire Earth's gold. So we had 2/3 of the gold. Europe had a bunch of receipts for gold, and then the rest of the world had 1/3 of the gold to split amongst themselves. So we was banking. We was banking. We was pulling in some serious cash. Serious cash. So Europe pretty much ran out of gold by then. And that's kind of how they said they pretty much fucked their whole shit up back in the day. Then you have 1944 when things really started getting crazy because France seen what was going on, and France was like, hold up, the Americans is giving out all these paper receipts for gold, but we know ain't no way they have enough gold to cash in all these paper receipts. So France said, fuck that, we want our gold. So France started actually cashing in their dollars for the gold. And that started a whole nother trend because now other countries are looking at that like, well, hold up. What you mean? So that started the whole Bretton Woods system. And that basically said the Bretton Woods system is really what got it all. That basically said we're gonna take all the major, pretty much every country's fiat money, paper money, or whatever, and it's gonna be, instead of being backed by gold, it's gonna be backed by the American dollar because the American dollar was still backed by gold. So now all the money was pretty much one. Hold on, someone keeps texting me. Yeah. So now all the countries' monies was backed by the U.S. dollar, and the U.S. dollar was backed by the gold. But the problem was we didn't have enough gold to cash in all those dollars. So if our dollar would have went down, or if everybody would try to cash in, with the whole world's monetary system would have collapsed because it wasn't. We was printing more receipts for gold than we actually had of gold. And France called us out on that. So between I'm trying to see. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, yeah, that was the problem. They had all these receipts, but there was no reserve. Like, remember, first it started with 100% reserve, meaning they had to have the much. Then they started with the 40% reserve with the Federal Reserve Act, and then with this Bretton Woods Act, there was no reserve. It was a 0% reserve, meaning they could just fucking print as much as they want, and it didn't really matter how much gold they had in reserve. So France was like, that ain't going down. And I think his name was Charles. What was his name? Oh, I'll tell you in a minute. What was his dude name? His name was Charles de Gaulle. Charles de Gaulle. Charles de Gaulle. I don't think I'm saying that right. Charles de Gaulle. But from France, he was the president of France at the time, and around the near the 60s. So France from basically the 60s to 71 for about 11 years got all their money, and we lost 50% of our gold from cashing it back, cashing it back to the other countries. We was at 50%. So we had way more dollar bills than we did with gold, because everyone was starting to cash in because they didn't like what we was doing. So 71, we realized, we keep giving out this gold, we're not gonna have enough gold, and people gonna still be wanting some gold. So we're gonna have to do something about that. So good old Nixon, he came on out and he started. I don't even think he started. He didn't even start a new act. He shut the gold standard down. He was basically saying, okay, we're not gonna keep trading in the dollar for gold. Everybody is gonna use fiat money. So everyone's. You remember how I said everyone's money was backed by the U.S. dollar, and the U.S. dollar was backed by the gold. Now everyone's money is just not backed by anything. It's just fiat money, and when the problem. That's when the problem started. So now everyone is on fiat money. And this has never happened before. It's never been the entire system on fiat. Like everyone's always had something backed by gold. Now nothing is backed by gold. It's just paper money. It's monopoly money, pretty much. It's not like this 100 is not. It is. You can't just go. You can buy some gold, but the price of gold fluctuates. This said you already had the gold and you can go get it whenever you want. Now you have to buy it, quote unquote. So if this dollar was to go, or any of the monies was to go to zero, the value of it was to go to zero, is not backed by gold. So once it's at zero, that's it. It's no, because it's not backed by anything. It's gold. So everyone will go back to gold. So if you don't have gold, you fucked. And if you had $1 million, United States dollars, that don't mean nothing because it's not backed by gold. So you're fucked too. And that's the problem where we are in today. The problem today is we're using this paper money, and the way it works is once people start buying this gold, the price of gold goes up. Like right now, the price of gold is, I believe, like 1,700 an ounce. I think it's like $1,700 an ounce. When back in the day, when this all first started, it was like $35 an ounce. Now we're at 1,700 an ounce. So it's like, what do you do? How do you protect yourself? Then you got these new bitcoins. You got this new currency out. Bitcoins, crypto money. But the problem with bitcoins is, I mean, it's kind of like gold, because it rises over time, but it's not backed by gold. So if it was to hit zero, that's it. And also with Bitcoin is the creator, the person that no one's ever met or seen, has it where there's only, it's kind of like gold. There's only, you can't make more. You know what I'm saying? You can't print it. You can't print more. Like once it hits 21 million, that's it. That's all the coins. Just like gold. Gold is only made from the sun. A sun exploded, and it's the particles stick around. You start getting into physics and all that shit. But basically, gold is from suns. Basically, long the make a complicated story quick. Gold is from an explosion from the sun. An exploding sun creates gold, and then it floats through space and does whatever. That's why it's so valuable, because you can't just make gold. I mean, you can dig gold up, yeah, but it originated from the sun. That makes sense. So you have bitcoins. Bitcoins is crypto money. It's kind of untraceable, and it can't be printed or made, so it can't be, oversaturated like we're doing with the dollars. But the thing with Bitcoin is not many people accepting it, and it fluctuates. It's good and it's not good, but it's good because once this dollar crash, everything crashes. There has to be a new. It's going to be a new system. That's regardless. There's no way around it. Like it's going to happen one way or the other. It's going to crash, and we're going to have to go back to gold. It's just as simple as that. Once the money crash, it goes back to gold, and then until they create another currency that's backed by gold, which is not happening right now. So my advice to you is buy gold. You don't want to buy it once the dollar's finna crash, because you're not really making you're not doing anything, because this is what happened. Once the dollar starts to crash, people are going to start buying gold. Once people start buying gold, the price of gold starts to go up. Once the dollar crashes, the gold is definitely in demand now, because no one wants the dollar because it's worthless. So now it's really sky jumping. So it's just one of those investments. Gold and silver, is the end all be all, and it'll always be around. It keeps its value, and it can't really be oversaturated. So that's kind of a quick crash course on that. Is this fiat money that we're using? Well, not even fiat money, it's fiat currency that we're using, it's not really worth anything, because once it goes bye bye, and I mean it don't matter what you got, peso, you know, whatever. What's that? The Canadian dollars, or all those money, everybody's money right now. China, Russia, North Korea, South Korea, Asia, Africa, Australia, Canada, Alaska, whoever, no matter what country, continent, no matter where you at, is nobody's money is backed by gold right now. Nobody's money is backed by gold. It's just money. It's just a new form of money. And once people start losing trust in it and start losing its value, you go back to gold. And once you go back to gold, you don't want to go back to gold once everybody's going back to gold, because then it's going to be impossible to get. So now is the time to buy gold. You gotta treat it like a bank. That way, once the dollar does crash, you're gonna be straight, because you can convert it. One, you can still transferable, so you can still trade a gold coin for whatever, for whatever. And two, once they do decide to replace whatever, whatever they want to replace it with, then you can convert it over with your gold. Oh, someone keeps texting me. So, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is buy some fucking gold. Get you your gold up. Get you some food. The same old. Get you food, shelter, weapons, and prepare to ride out the storm. Because once the dollar hits, and then war and all that we got, also, you want to be prepared for it all. You want to be prepared for fallout, and you also want to be prepared for the collapse of the dollar, because you don't want to have thousands of dollars in the bank and then the dollar goes and now you don't have nothing worth anything, because all of it is just fake money. Because I haven't even touched the monetary system in the United States. Oh, we haven't even touched on that. Or fractional reserve lending and all that. That's gonna have to be another video. I'm gonna have to do another video on that. But I think I'm gonna end it on that, just to kind of. I think I pretty much hit all the main points. Get you some gold. It's getting serious out here. All right, well, that's gonna do it for today. Any questions or anything like that, just hit me up on the Facebook, or shoot me a text and we can go into more. Someone's at my door, so I'll be at it. Yep.